Lighting has nearly infinite variations, but the actual parameters are relatively few. The direction of the light relative to the subject, the altitude of the light relative to the subject, how hard or soft the light is, and the color. Notice how both direction and altitude of the light not only light the subject differently, they give it a completely different emotional tone. Altitude especially alters the mood radically. There are exceptions, of course, but in general we try to avoid flat front lighting. It gives no depth, no shape to the subject, and it doesn't separate from the background. As the light comes around to the side, the subject gets shape, definition, depth. The scene becomes more three-dimensional. Here, a backlight and a kicker are added for further separation from the background. As the light comes back around to the front, again, it gets flat. No depth, no separation. Lighting from the upstage side, or the side away from camera, is a fundamental way of adding depth and shape to the subject. Here we're auditioning various levels of fill. Too much fill destroys what we've built. Lighting from the downstage is seldom complementary to the subject. Film and video are basically two-dimensional mediums. Lighting is one of the main tools we use to give a scene depth, dimensionality, a foreground, a midground, and a background. We call it three-point lighting, but usually there are more lights involved. Here's a soft key, a backlight, a kicker, and now we audition various levels of fill. This is an experiment with various levels of diffusion. Here we start with a bare mighty mole on the subject. We'd actually rarely use a mighty mole directly on someone. It is normally used through diffusion or as a bounce. Opal softens the shadows slightly, but not much. We use it sometimes to take the curse off, smooth out the lighting pattern a little bit. Light grid cloth is a light diffusion. Notice how the shadows are getting a little softer, a little less distinct. Grid cloth is a heavy diffusion. See how soft and indistinct the shadows are becoming? This is because the grid cloth helps the light wrap around her face. It softens the shadows. With all these types of diffusion, they are mounted on a 4x4 frame, the same distance from the subject and the same source. 216 is also a heavy diffusion, not as heavy as grid cloth. Muslin has been used since the early days of filmmaking. It's a heavy cloth diffusion. Notice its creamy, soft quality. The shadows are soft and gentle as the light wraps around her face. Again, this is a 4x4. If we really wanted a softer light, we'd go to a larger diffuser, a 6 by 6, an 8 by 8, a 12 by 12, or perhaps even a 20 by 20. Silk is a medium heavy diffusion, not nearly as heavy as muslin or even grid cloth. Here we're stacking two frames, an opal behind and a muslin closest to the model. Stacking frames is often a way to get a really soft light. Stacking two frames with heavy diffusion is about as soft as we're going to get with only a 4x4 frame. To get softer, we would need to go to larger and larger diffusion. Here we are back again to the bare mighty mole. Licos are primarily theatrical lights, but they're very popular in film work as well. They give a clean, distinct shadow. Very hard light, but often used as a beauty light as well. Here's an experiment with a source 4 Lico and some light lace. We're not trying to put a pattern on the subject, just add a bit of texture to the light. Here it is without the lace and with the lace. Dealing with daylight can be difficult. Direct sun is harsh and contrasting, especially in the middle of the day. One solution is to add some diffusion or some bounce. If you have large HMIs, you can solve it that way as well. A very simple solution is to move the actor into open shade. It's soft, flattering, and free. A very difficult situation is when an actor is in front of a window or a door. Exposing for the actor overexposes the background and flares the lens. Exposing for the background leaves the actor in silhouette. Again, if you have a large HMI, you can solve it that way. A simpler way to solve this is just to change the camera angle. This gives her a beautiful soft side light with no background problems. Here's the master for a simple dialogue scene lit with flat front lighting. Boring. No depth, no shape, no dimension. A widely used lighting plan is back-cross keys. Here, one tweenie is his key light and her backlight. The second tweenie is his backlight and her key light. Here we're adding just a touch of fill. And here's the master with back-cross keys. Both the lights are on the upstage side, giving it some shadows, which adds to the depth and dimension. It gives the actors some shape. Here's where we started. Quite a difference. Here's his close-up with the same back-cross keys, but we need something in the background to give it depth, to give it dimension. Here we add a little bit on the background, and just a touch of ambient. Here's his close-up with back-cross keys, and her close-up with back-cross keys. Here's a simple procedure called carrying a lamp. It's a form of motivated lighting. We want it to appear as though the practical lamp on the table is lighting the actress. But if we turn it up enough to actually light her, it blows out completely. We use a small hand dimmer, or hand squeezer, to set the level of the practical lamp. Then we add another light from the same direction as the lamp. This is what actually lights the actress. It also has to be on a hand dimmer. We need to control it very precisely. Here's the end result. It's a motivated light appearing to come from the practical lamp. In this workshop, we lit the same scene 7 different ways. Here we're lighting with hard light, or what some people might call film noir style lighting. Only Fresnel hard lights from the upstage side or through the windows. His key is a tweenie on the upstage side of the set. She is lit with a 2K through Venetian blinds and some lace. A 2K in the background adds a little moonlight presence to the window. Here's her key without the lace and with the lace. It's really there just to add a little texture to her key. Her key light also gives him a bit of a backlight. Same scene with only soft lights. Everything is either through diffusion or bounce. Her key is a mighty mole bounced into foam core. His key is a 2K chimera with some opal in front of it. By keeping the lights on the upstage side of the scene, we still have some shadows and shape, even though it's a very soft light. Here we go with practical lamps only. It's a little problematical for the wide shot, but it works fine for the close-ups. Here we're trying each lamp one at a time. On an actual project, we might have a wider variety of practical lamps. It's important to work with the production designer to make sure the proper lamps are available. Here we're having him lean into his key light. And now we have her lean from shadow into the key light. Next we tried lighting only through the windows. Outside we have a 9 light and a mole par coming through the window. For her, a 2K comes through the rear window. His key is only a desk bounce card. None of the 9 light hits him directly. Here we try it with and without the bounce card. We rigged a silk to make sure none of the spill hit her directly. Here it is with and without the silk. Next we tried very hard, toppy downlight, a very extreme effect. The challenge with a scene like this is determining just how much of the eyes you want to see. We're trying both a desk bounce card and an eye light. This is with and without the bounce card. Now we're trying various levels of the eye light. The eye light in this case is a pepper on a hand dimmer. You have to consider how the final viewer will be seeing this scene. It may be much contrastier by the time it reaches the viewer. Now he raises a sheet of paper, which gives him additional fill. Obviously, this is action specific. Next, we tried a Godfather overhead light, a very soft light made popular by Gordon Willis on the original Godfather film. It still leaves the eyes in a bit of shadow, which may be just the thing for the mood of the scene. Here we're trying a little bounce in and out. It all depends on the scene, the mood, and the medium you're shooting. In this case, it was XD cam. She was farther away from the desk, so the bounce card did almost nothing for her. Fortunately, her facial shape works just fine. Here's the scene lit with candles only. Clearly, it took several candles to get us a decent exposure. It's a warm, glowing effect with a bit of flicker. For him, we tried replacing the actual candles with a flicker box. Here we placed several Kino flows low to simulate low practicals. Gives us a very moody, mysterious effect.